Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Calderis Refinery. Our first player is Tex, the Legend. He is playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer, using the new Night Lord's scheme in Elite Mod. The Chaos Sorcerer is a spell-casting hero. He's got Doom Bolts for long-range damage, he's got teleporting, and he also has many spells for manipulation and control, like Chains of Torment and Tome of Subjugation. His opponent is Noisy, playing as the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is also a spell-casting hero. She's got a little more raw power than the Sorcerer. She can also become a tanky melee hero with certain war gears. She's also a better single entity counter and has a very good melee counter overall. Now, this replay definitely has me pretty excited because, first of all, it's a 1v1 replay. Those are my favorite kind of replays. It is also a game between two of my favorite players in this game, as well as it having a Sorcerer, and not just any Sorcerer. Tex is probably the second best Sorcerer player in this game. Noisy himself actually being probably the first best Sorcerer player. First best. A little redundant. But anyway, the common knowledge about this matchup for a long time was supposedly that Chaos is strongly favored against Imperial Guard. And I say supposedly because it's knowledge that I am personally coming to challenge a bit myself, as well as something that even certain high-level players are saying things about. One of thing that comes from my own experience is that a double Sentinel opening is extremely powerful against Chaos. More powerful against Chaos than it is against any other race. And I think even back in retail, double Sentinel was Toy Lali's answer for dealing with Chaos. And it was something that, of course, the way he did it, I think it was basically win the game in Tier 1 with double Sentinels or don't win at all. And also from what I've observed of several other high-level games against Sorcerers or even Chaos against double Sentinel builds, it really seems like Chaos just kind of needs to keep up, hold enough ground, and not bleed too many models against the double Sentinel build. But they usually don't win on the map control or really just win in Tier 1 against the double Sentinel build. There's also Torpid, a very good Imperial Guard player, or just a very good player in general, who claims that the Inquisitor is pretty much favored against Chaos, and the Inquisitor has always been a hero with a lot of tricks up her sleeve, and she's one of the reasons I like to compare her to the Sorcerer is that she's similar in that way. These are heroes who have a lot of tricks up their sleeves, and that's a big part of just what they are about. And that's kind of contrasted with like Force Commanders, Chaos Lords, or War Bosses. Those are not heroes with lots of tricks up their sleeves. Those are fairly straightforward heroes, and that's not to say that they don't take a lot of skill and that they can't do different things, but they're not trick up their sleeve heroes like the way these two heroes are. Now these two players here are certainly not going to play this. They're not playing things out in very typical ways, with going for extremely long builds. Noisy, known more than anyone else for his long builds. He's got quad guardsmen, a sentinel, and some artillery spotters. Meanwhile, Tex has triple heretics, a Chaos Space Marine, and a squad of havocs. We've got a decap on, this is Noisy's natural power. Meanwhile, there was even a decap on Tex's natural power, but he managed to get it back and note it. Tex now actually does have the better end of map control, and he's got both of the contested powers, and I think that's pretty significant in terms of keeping his map control going. Noisy, meanwhile, missed it, but he lost one of his guardsman squads already. There's probably a guardsman squad that did not have a sergeant upgrade. In fact, only one of his guardsman squads has the sergeant upgrade. Now that was very nice. Tex almost got his Sentinel hit by that artillery spotter shell, so as soon as he saw it coming, he actually started moving the Havoc out of the way. It hadn't even set up, so it was able to move out of the way very quickly. And the Sorcerer took a whole lot of damage there, just getting a decap, apparently. And I think, now these The lasguns on the artillery spotter squad do not do that much damage. They actually do about as much damage as the lasgun on a guardsman squad, but they're only 3 models, so the damage from an artillery spotter squad is pretty negligible. But we did also have the Inquisitor probably using Hammer of the Witches on the Sorcerer, which does do 100 damage by itself, and then it stuns that hero, or stuns whatever model is used against it. Tech's now going for double Grenade Launcher Heretics, and Grenade Launcher Heretics are definitely powerful against Imperial Guard squads. There have just been reasons why I personally have not really liked... Well, there have been reasons why I personally have not really liked getting Grenade Launcher Heretics against Imperial Guard, believe it or not, even though it seems like it should be better. But certainly if you have this many squads of heretics, you better make some of them grenade launchers. But if I only have 1 or maybe even 2, I think it's actually good to keep at least 1 squad of melee heretics against Imperial Guard. And I would even say if you only have 1 squad of heretics, it might be better to keep them as melee. For a couple of reasons. It gives you a control option that you don't really quite get with the grenade launcher heretics. I mean, in a way, you can use their grenade launcher barrage as control, but not really the kind of control that I'm thinking of, which is close range melee counter control, even against heroes, and you will have all 3 Imperial Guard heroes going in for melee, and sometimes actually having that Doom Blast as a way of slowing them down is extremely helpful. Still, it gives you more wipe potential if you can get them into a retreat path, and I'm sure pretty much what killed one of Noisy's guardsman squads was a squad of melee heretics. I also feel you will inevitably want an aspiring champion, just in case you have to deal with an infiltrating Inquisitor or infiltrating stormtroopers, and especially it can be very good to protect a vehicle with a squad of aspiring champion melee heretics against something like Melta Stormtroopers. But anyway, Tech's going to Tier 2, shooting Doom Bolts. I actually feel like it's been somewhat of a static game in some ways. Now, the Sentinel has actually been doing pretty well. I think there's only 1 Sentinel, which... 1 Sentinel is very powerful, but it's not the extreme pressure that 2 Sentinels really puts on. And I do feel that you need... Like, I think Tech's build would have a lot of trouble against the dual Sentinel build. I think it would bleed a lot. I guess just what's making it work for Tex is that Noisy doesn't have 2 Sentinels. He's got triple Guardsmen, and I do feel that the Sorcerer and possibly even Cass does better against like squad-heavy builds from Imperial Guard as opposed to like more Sentinel-oriented builds. Since these guardsmen, all of these squads, they are going to be very vulnerable from things like Doom Bolts that the Chaos Sorcerer has been shooting out, the Grenade Launcher Heretics. But Noisy is definitely gaining the better end of control now. He's moving up. He is about to... And that Hammer of the Witch's ability is really, really shutting down that Sorcerer. The only thing that I'm kind of surprised about is the fact that Tex has actually been moving forward with the Sorcerer. And I think, certainly, as long as if he doesn't have the teleport armor, he's better off keeping the Sorcerer hanging back and shooting Doom Bolts. He's going to do a lot more damage to the Guardsmen that way than teleporting in. And I think it's also just a good way to respond to the Inquisitor. Of course, the Inquisitor is always going to have that Hammer of the Witches, and it's best reserved for heroes rather than pretty much anything else. So we can reasonably expect that it's going to be reserved for the Sorcerer, and if the Sorcerer gets close, he's going to get hit by that. And the Hammer of the Witches has a limited range. Doom Bolts definitely outranges it. And although Tex's build, I think, can work, right now he doesn't really have a whole lot to threaten this Sentinel. The Sentinel, and since it's only 1 Sentinel, it's not going to be doing that much damage. It's still just very persistent damage output, but he really does not have a whole lot to threaten. a single squad of Chaos Space Marines really isn't going to be enough to really kill. Certainly not enough to kill a Sentinel, and in a lot of cases, not even enough to really pressure a Sentinel. Since if it's supported by Warship, I mean, if the Sentinel is supported by repairs, it's definitely just not going to take enough damage from a single squad of Chaos Space Marines. The Havocs definitely prevent how far the Sentinel can actually go. But here is a Dreadnought, and I think that's going to be something. This is definitely going to give Tex a temporary advantage, especially since Noisy at the moment has no AV whatsoever, because he's not even in Tier 2. So Tex actually won. Tex won the tech race quite handily, and it's interesting how he did that. Certainly, one way is that he had the contested power farms, so he definitely had a better power income. Both players had their power up a little bit late, but Tex with the contested power incomes definitely had a lot more. Noisy now in Tier 2. He's getting Stormtroopers, and I can only guess that he's going to make it a squad of Melta Stormtroopers. Even though I have heard from some Imperial Guard players actually claim that Melta Stormtroopers are not really a great unit. And I kind of get it in some ways. It can be hard to make them work that well, since they are actually kind of squishy for a close-range squad. Once you put Meltaguns on the Stormtroopers, they are a close-range squad instead of a long-range squad. And they are kind of squishy in that. And they do infiltrate, of course, but once you start shooting, they do get revealed, and they're going to be, like, behind enemy lines. So I think they're better more for the surprise effect, and the surprise effect, as well as the Melta snare, but they can definitely be a little risky. And then usually once a vehicle has been destroyed, they're not really that great of a unit. Like, just for purposes other than AV, they aren't really a great unit. Although they're still better than other AV units in the sense that they still can function as anti-infantry. This is actually really, really bad. Oh, those heretics were just in a lot of trouble, staying in there way too close, with too few models against all of this range fire from Noisy. Noisy actually now getting a second Stormtrooper squad, and I'm guessing this one will not be a squad of Melta Stormtroopers, since Assault Hit Stormtroopers are a pretty powerful unit, and I'm guessing he's not going to double up on Melta Stormtroopers. We've actually got a Mark of Khorne's Chaos Space Marine squad, and this is actually something I agree with very, very much. Mark of Khorne Chaos Space Marine, I actually feel, are slightly better against Imperial Guard than Mark of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marine. And of course, in most matchups, it's the opposite. And in general, Mark of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines are a lot more useful than a Mark of Khorne. But this is just one matchup where I feel Mark of Khorne is more effective. Now, one thing that's going to be slowing that down, though, is that the Inquisitor is a fantastic melee counter. She has upgraded to the Excruciators. I don't know if that was directly in response to the Khorne Chaos Space Marines, but I mean, it's something he could have just gotten anyway, because it's such a good... I feel it's a fantastic armor warrior. You can get it in Tier 2. Pergatus is, of course, a much more powerful armor upgrade. But that's strictly a Tier 3 warrior. And I was actually wrong about Noisy getting 2 squads of Melta Stormtroopers. And I mean, that's certainly a lot of very powerful AV, because you've got 2 squads of Stormtroopers. We've got the Icon of Tzeentch, Noisy using the Icon of Tzeentch, but he doesn't manage to get a model kill on the Guardsman. He actually got a few model kills, but he wasn't able to wipe out the squad. Oh, that was Tex with the Icon of Tzeentch. Ooh, made a mistake there. So Tex has upgraded to the Icon of Tzeentch on the Sorcerer. He's also gotten the Demon Armor. I think the Demon Armor is particularly useful against Imperial Guard as long as you don't have to deal with something like Ogrins or just a very aggressive melee hero. And the Inquisitor can be an aggressive melee hero, although with her current setup, that's not really what she's going to be suited for. The more aggressive build, instead of the Servo Skull, you would want the Rosarius. Now, the Servo Skull is also a very interesting purchase, because this grants her the Auspex Scan ability, which reveals an area, and I imagine it also detects. So I think he got that in part so that he can use it to detect Tzeentch worship. We've got some Tzeentch shrines in the middle. They will shoot out some Doom Bolts. We've got 3, in fact. And I believe if they if the heretics worship, they will shoot out the doom bolts even faster. Meanwhile, these are Night Lords. Let's even, while there's a lull in the action, let's take a look at these heretics. They've got like those BDSM helmets. And we even have an aspiring champion on the grenade launcher heretics. I think just in part to, just now to be really, really careful about these stormtroopers. Ooh, we had some, wow, he actually switched. So we've got some warrior switching going on, because he switched to the Sigil of the Rift. And in a way, this isn't terribly surprising. There is a Manticore. Wow, I didn't even realize we have a Manticore going in on the Havoc, but the Havoc does retreat, so the Manticore is not actually going to do that much. But now the Manticore is potentially in trouble. Where are the Khorne Chaos Space Marines? The Khorne Chaos Space Marines, if anything, I think should stop going after the Stormtroopers and go straight for the Manticore. Unfortunately, I think this is actually a very missed opportunity by Tex, because he's bleeding Khorne Chaos Space Marine models. I think he could have wiped out the Manticore if he had played that right. However, he's still getting the map control. In fact, he's got a significant lead right now, 378 to 192. But we've got the Stormtroopers getting revealed. If anything, I'm surprised to see that the heretics worshipped. I thought they were going to just shoot like a grenade barrage and then just run away. One squad of grenade launcher heretics actually goes down, getting hit by the Hellfury strike, and now this is actually going to be the end of the Dreadnought. And this is actually going to be a really, really bad engagement for Tex, because now he's also going to probably lose all 3 of these shrines. So we just had a lot of sunk resources for Tex, a lot of things he lost. He's going to lose all 3 shrines. He lost the Dreadnought, and he lost the squad of heretics. Unfortunately, I think even just that decision of worshipping was a really bad decision for him there. And I think if he had used the grenade barrage instead, that could have saved him a lot of things. So Noisy actually now in an extremely strong position. Well, Noisy in an extremely strong position, except for the fact that he's behind in BP's 370 to 141. And Tex does have also the much, much stronger economy, in part because he's still got these contested power farms, or power nodes. Now, these Khorne Chaos Space Marines, another thing they're great for that I haven't mentioned is that they're great for hunting down the Sentinels. They will do a lot of range damage to the Sentinel. If they can bait out the Stomp, then the Sentinel's in a huge amount of trouble as the Khorne Chaos Space Marines go and chase. And I like how we've got this long-range bombardment from Tex, using the autocannons at roughly maximum range, attacking ground, and just hitting the bunker because he knows where it is. This is a great way of dealing with a bunker. Unfortunately, this is a great way of dealing with setup teams. Manticore, one of the most powerful setup team counters in the game, forces off both the Havocs and the Khorne Chaos Space Marines, who just happen to be standing around the Havoc. Not really a good place to stand for them. So Tex is now moving around very cautiously. He's in Tier 3, and you know, at this point, considering the resources he's saving up, I'm imagining he's saving up for a super unit, pretty much. I don't know whether it'll be a Land Raider or a Great Unclean one. It's also possible he could be saving up for Terminators, and in that case, he has the power and the requisition, but he just doesn't have the red. So Noisy now using his double melt to Stormtroopers to bash the power, and they will do that very, very quickly. AV units, always good for bashing power, and it actually did turn out to be Terminators. And I think that was, in some ways, the better choice. Land Raider probably would have been the riskiest choice, considering, first of all, considering the Manticore, considering Imperial Guard and the Manticore being one of the best counters to Land Raiders in the game. Also considering double Melta Stormtroopers. In fact, I think 2 Melta-Bombs, oh my god, that Manticore hitting so hard, killed another squad of Heretics, nearly wiping the Havoc as well. I think another squad of, I think 2 of the Melta-Bombs on a Land Raider, followed up by a Manticore, probably would be the end of the Land Raider. Anyway, the Chaos Terminator is actually doing pretty well. They are very powerful against Imperial Guard squads. Fantastic infantry counter, but they do have to worry about getting tied up by the Inquisitor and then taking range damage from these guardsmen. The guardsmen, because they have plasma guns, will be a great source of damage against the Terminators. And unfortunately, things have really not been going in Tex's favor pretty much ever since he lost the engagement where he lost the Dreadnought and all of his shrines. And it's been pretty much noisy ever since. He's even taken one of the contested power nodes. I don't think that's that big of a thing at this stage in the game, but he could afford to go over here, destroy this power node, deprive Tex from having that power, get the red, especially since Tex right now is actually suffering quite a bit financially. We've got another lull in the action. Let's take a look around. Let's take a look at some Chaos Space Marines. Oh, well, these are Mark of Khorne Chaos Space Marines, so they still have those Khorne helmets that they've had for a while now. Let's look at the Havocs. So that's with the Night Lord scheme. And Melta Stormtroopers are just going around bashing power, and they're mostly doing that. And now that Noisy also has the bigger army, he can do things like just maybe go around, flank with the Stormtroopers, and he can use that as a way of taking out the Havoc, and that would actually be very powerful against the Havoc. Assail actually used on the Heretics instead of the Khorne Space Marines, but Khorne Space Marines just taking way too much range damage. And it looks like now this game is really just keeps going in favor of Tex. Bunker goes down. It looks like he pretty much just targeted the bunker. Also used the Demon Shield or the Demonic Shield rather, to really minimize the damage that those Chaos Terminators took. And although I said that a Land Raider would be risky against all this stuff because it could die very easily, right now there's definitely plenty of sources of damage against Terminators. We've got plasma damage, which does bonus to Terminators. Stormtroopers, believe it or not, they also do bonus damage to... with Melta weapons, they actually do bonus damage to super heavy infantry. So this was an interesting teleport. Tex, I think, is... Oh, that's terrible! I was going to say Tex is going to leave the rift open so he can go back in. Oh my god. That is terrible. And he just barely saved that Terminator squad, but unfortunately that was very, very well played by Noisy, and I think maybe even a little bit of a misplay by Tex to send those Terminators in aggressively. And I think maybe just should have really paid attention to the fact that the Inquisitor has a sail, which you actually can't teleport out of that. So you also you can retreat out of it, but Terminators can't retreat. So that is something. Terminators are extremely vulnerable to that, to abilities like Assail, Robes of Torment from the Sorcerer, as well as Entangle from the Warp Spider Exarch. Now we even have infiltrated Stormtroopers. I don't know where they're going now. I thought they were going to go for a back half. Maybe also go for a flank. But we've got a Predator out from Tex. If anything, I would be scared from this Predator. We are about to have these Stormtroopers flank. They do not have enough energy for a Melta, but you know what? They're just going to attack. And all of a sudden, this is actually just going to be a terrible engagement for Tex. Tex loses his Sorcerer. You know what? If anything, this is probably looking like GG for Tex. Might even be a bit of an early call for me, but it's just not going well. Predator still shooting, and the Chaos Space Marines are going in, and although I think they're, as much as I've said about, I think they can do very well in this matchup, against 4 range squads right here, all of which are going to be doing a lot of damage to them, supported by the bunker. They're just not going to win. They're just going to take too much damage. Now we actually have the Inferno pistol from the Inquisitor, so she's switched out from the Holy Razor to the Inferno pistol. This gives her a ranged AV weapon. So unfortunately, it's actually now really looking downhill for Tex. Manticore Strike going in. Manticore Strikes are very, very powerful against super heavy infantry for whatever reason. I don't know if it scales up against them because it seems to do... I don't know, it seems to do like about as well, if not better against them than like super heavy infantry. And I feel like Tex at this point, he's become very, very cautious and very, very afraid to like move forward. And one of the things that's tough is that one of the things that's tough is this bunker. It's very hard for him to deal with this bunker. And he was trying to deal with it at long range by having the Havoc bombard it from long range. And I think that's kind of what he's got going right now with making a Noise Marine purchase in Tier 3. That he wants something that he can use to bombard this bunker from long range. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to get it out in time, to be honest. Because he can't directly engage the guardsmen as long as they're supported by this bunker, because they'll just keep reinforcing and basically just really killing and winning out against whatever they're going to fight against. And the vehicles can't really approach that much either. There we do have that was some Curse of Tzeentch, unfortunately used against a rather full health Guardsman squad that's also supported by a bunker, so not going to be that powerful there either. Although they are losing models from that Predator shot. Predator, I think, yeah, with no upgrade whatsoever. And Tex, yes, he is upgrading to a Blastmaster in Tier 3, and he's using that. Unfortunately, he's not in range of the bunker, and he needs to get in range of the bunker, because that's really what he needs to kill. And I mean, it's now Tex who is just hanging on. All he was able to do was get a decap on the middle VP, and that's how he's trying to stay in this game. And Tex is also... The Predator, I also feel like, needs to shoot the bunker. It's really about this bunker. That's like really what is messing Tex up. Now we have a Manticore Strike going in. It finishes off the Predator, and it hits the Noise Marine. Even though it didn't do that much damage to the Noise Marine, that means the Noise Marine is now not set up. The Guardsmen are just moving forward. So he's finally set up right at the range. Unfortunately, a misfire, and it shoots just into the ground. And the Inquisitor just going to move in. Now she's actually switched out to the Inquisitorial Mandate. And the little ramp here is actually preventing the Noise Marines from shooting any further. So that's another case where the terrain is messing up the shots, and Tex actually calls the GG. Well, he calls the GG. Still playing it out. I don't know if he's going to concede at some point, or if... Oh, yeah, there we go. Alright. So, I mean, that was an interesting game, certainly a high-level game. It was, I would say, probably not the most exciting or action-packed high-level game, even though... Because I guess what basically happened is that Tex was winning, and then ever since he lost his Dreadnought, and that engagement where he lost the Dreadnought, the Shrines... it was pretty much all downhill for him there, and at that point it just turned around and completely went in favor of Noisy. I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless. Have a good night.